Hi, everyone. Welcome to this ProcessMaker 3 training session, which is part of the beginners training series powered by Diamond. I am your host and trainer, Afe Araram. For our sixth session, we shall continue our work on our demo projects. And this time around, we want to focus on building the initiation form for the initiation task, or rather the first task in the Cash Advance Requisition leg of our process. At the end of this session, you should be able to add your company logo to your ProcessMaker instance. You should know how to change the look and feel, kind of jazz up your form by taking advantage of external style sheets, and also make use of external JavaScript libraries like NumbersUtil and Cleave JS to add some dynamic functionalities to your form. Then, as well as take advantage of the validate property for web controls in conjunction with regular expressions to validate user inputs, to validate or constrain users to the form or format of input you want for certain fields on your form. And then you should be able to add JavaScript logic to your forms. Of course, we need JavaScript to be able to create dynamic and interactive web forms that will interact with visitors and execute complex actions. And then lastly, you should also know how to go about debugging JavaScript errors that you will face or you will encounter. So let's unpack all of this. We have to log into our demo or test instance, and we have to open the project or process we were working on. Now, remember we said that for you to build a form, there are two ways you can add or create a form on ProcessMaker 3. The first is to click on the Dynaforms option on the Process Objects toolbox, also called the main toolbox. Once you click on Dynaforms, it opens a dialog box, the Dynaforms dialog box, and you will see this green Create button. If you click on this button, you get the Create Blank Dynaform dialog box where you can type in the title or name of the form, put a description, and then save the form or save and open the form. That is one way. Alternatively, you could hover your mouse on Dynaforms here on the main toolbox. Once you hover your mouse on the plus button, you see the name comes out, it's Create. If you click on that, you get the Create Blank Dynaform dialog box where you can type the title of your Dynaform, and you can also type in a description. Okay. So now, how is our initiation form going to look like? How will it look like? Now, remember I showed you that for our fictional organization called MSB Corporation, I showed you this Cash Advance Requisition form earlier. And as you're also aware, I showed you the process map. Let's see if we can locate that. The process map of the process map of the process as given to us by business, which we have been able to capture in ProcessMaker to be what you can see on the screen. Now, as you can see, there is the Cash Advance Requisition leg of the process, and there's the expense retirement leg of the process. Okay. So going back to the manual form, as you can see, there is a section having the request date, the employee name, and the employee's department. So let's begin to collate what we need on Notepad. So I have the first section I'll call the request details section. And here I'm going to have employee name. Remember, for my variables, I shall be using the camel case. Then there is the request date. There is employee department. Then there is the amount requested. Okay. Amount requested. I also will have the expense reason. Expense reason. And if the user puts in the amount requested, I want the system to be able to give us that same amount in words. So I'm going to have a second variable called amount requested words. Okay. Then for the next section, now looking at what you have on the screen here, let me minimize this. You see that we have for approvers, there is the requester name, requester signature, then approved by, which refers to the supervisor, and then the supervisor signature. And then you also have disbursed by, referring to the finance officer, and then the finance officer's signature. We're going to bundle all of this into a form of its own. And why a form of its own? Because this approval section is going to appear in all our forms, all our parent forms. So let me call that. Remember now that we would have our initiation form should also have this acknowledgement. It's necessary that our initiation form has that acknowledgement. It's very, very important. Now, if the initiation form has acknowledgements, then it means the approval form will not have acknowledgements. The acknowledgement section is only for the initiator of the request. So which means based on our current understanding, we are going to have at least 2 forms for the Cash Advance Requisition leg. One to be used at the initiation task by the employee to make the request or initiate the request. Then one for the supervisor and finance officer tasks. And so those are the two main forms we are going to have. Now, go back to the manual form and our notepad. See, the next session we're going to have is the disbursement section. Disbursement section. So the disbursement details. So I have something like this, disbursement details section. And under this section, we'll have amount advanced. So we're going to have amount advanced. I don't need to provide, we don't need to provide an amount advanced in words for this. And we also need the date advanced. So you can see on the form, date advanced. Okay. So that wraps up the disbursement details section. Now, should we have for our acknowledgement section, let us see. Oh, we're going to use a label there. So that's not going to be tied to a variable. Now, we want to provide a means for users of our forms to add comments. So we're going to have a comments section, and we'll need a variable to hold the user comment or allow the user type in the comment, and then another variable to hold all the comments that are being typed or that have been typed. And now we would also have an approver sign off section. And remember now, there are three users here. We'll start with the first one, which is going to be the employee. So for the employee, I prefer to prefix the variables for my approval sign-off sections with either sign-off, with both sign-off and date time. So for the text boxes that will hold the name of the person that is signing off on the form, I will prefix that with sign off. So we're going to have sign off employee. We also have sign off supervisor, and we have sign off finance. Now, for the text fields that will hold the date or the timestamp, the date and time, the date and time when the forms or each task is completed, I would use or prefix my variables with date time. So date time employee. Okay. And we're going to have date time supervisor and date time finance. Okay, so this for now, that's what we have. So now let's work on building the form. So we're going to go straight to Dynaforms, create a Dynaform, and I like prefixing my Dynaforms. I like prefixing my Dynaforms with a prefix that denotes the name of the process. So remember, for the first leg of the process is Cash Advance Requisition. And so for that, I shall be naming my initiation form Cash Advance Requisition, which is CAR as the acronym for Cash Advance Requisition, and type initiation there. Now, it's best practice to always give a description to your form. So I'll type in a description like this. Dynaform for the Cash Advance Requisition expense retirement process to be used by employees in initiating a request on the process. Okay. So I can save and open now. So the first thing would be to add a title, and this title will be Cash Advance Requisition. And like to add initiation form, so that when you look at the persons of the user screen, you will know immediately by the form title what task is on and what process it is. Okay, so as usual, best practice to give an ID, a JavaScript ID, to elements or web control elements on your form. So for this title, we'll give it form_title, form_title, and that's what we have there. And then the next thing to add would be a subtitle for this first section. So let's do it like this, always on top. So we need something for request details. So this will be request details. And this section, we're going to call it section_request details. That will be the ID for this particular, web control or element on the form. Now, the next, we're going to, for static effects or value, we're going to use 2 columns. I like using 2 columns throughout. So 2 columns, divide the next row into 2 columns, and I need a text box for employee name. So I'm going to copy that and drag a text box here and paste employee name. We'll create that. Now I would need the request date. I need a date time for that. Date time as request date. We'll come back to configure each of those elements, but let's just quickly add them now. The next one I need will be employee department. I need a text box for that. And then I need a text box for amount requested. Now, mind you, for amount requested, I need it to be data type float, not a string. Oh, sorry, I need to go and change the name. Select, go to variables. Let's edit this. I'll put the right name there. Okay. We can close this now. So confirm that we have amount requested as the variable name and as the ID as well. Okay, so let's now go to the amount requested in words. This is going to be a text area. So divide the next column, row into 2 columns. And then I would need to pull this here. Text area, so amount requested words. And then I need a text area for the expense reason. The text area for the expense reason. Okay. So now we are done with that. We'll come back later to configure each of them. But let's quickly get the next ones done now. So disbursement section, we're going to come here. I'm sorry, add a subtitle. And say section underscore disbursement details rather. Section underscore disbursement details. And then we'll divide this into 2 columns. So we need amount advanced. So amount advanced is it's going to be a float data type. It's going to be a float data type. Okay. And then we need a date advanced. This is going to be a date time control. Okay. Now we've done that. So before we continue, let's check out how our form looks like. Okay, so this is how it looks like. We're going to make a little some form of modifications or adjustments to the form. So here, employee name, we need it to be required, and it's something we want the system to populate. So we're going to disable that. The request date too is going to be required, but it's something we want the system to populate. But if you look at how it presents the values imputed, you see it is year followed by the month followed by the day, which is controlled by this format property for the control. So I'm going to turn that a bit around, and I prefer it to be the day, the month, and then the year. Okay. So same thing I have here. Let me copy that, is what should also affect the date advanced. So I'm going to put it there. Okay. Now, if we check again, we'll see that if you pick a date, it's now the day followed by the month followed by the year. So that's okay. We want the system to populate the request date as well as the date advanced. So what we're going to do is it's already required. We'll just make it disabled. And we'll come here to the date advance is required and we'll make the field disabled. For the amount advanced, it's a required field as well. Is a required field as well, but there's some configuration or some gymnastics we need to do on the amount advanced and the amount requested field. So I'm going to leave them the way they are now. And then let's quickly go to the employee department. It's required and it's something we want the system to be able to populate. When a user initiates a request on the process, the system should be able to know the employee name, get the request date, and also the employee's department. So that's why the display mode for this field is going to be disabled. Now, for expense reason, there must be a reason why the person is making the cash advance requisition request. So this is also a required field. Remember, like I said before, I prefer my text areas to have 2 rows. So I'm going to change that to 2. Same thing applies to the amount requested in words. Change that to 2 rows. And I need the system to be the one to populate this amount requested field in words. So I'm going to disable it. Now, let's preview and see what we have. This is what we have so far. I would want the label for my expense reason to match what we have here on the form, reason for expenses. Okay, and then the label for the amount requested words, we'll just change it a little bit. So let's cut this. So it becomes reason for expenses. Then for the amount requested in words, we change the label to amount requested, and in brackets, we put in words. Okay, so let's preview and see again. Okay. Now we can see how it is. Now, why have I not done something? I'm sorry, I mentioned that I was going to do something on the amount requested fields and the amount advanced. Now, for the amount requested, because we chose the data type to be a float, you can't type in a string value. It's already instant validation on that, on this input field. Okay. But if I type in an amount, when the digits are very many, or when it goes beyond 5 digits or more, it can become have a little negative impact on the user experience because the amount is not displayed with commas. So you can't, except you begin to count, you can't really tell, is this a billion or 100 million or 10 million or something, okay? So we would want to improve the user experience by ensuring that as the user types in the amount, the system is able to instantly put in the commas for the thousand separator. Okay. Now, if we want to do that, then we cannot use this field that is a float. And remember too, apart from the user experience when they type so that the user can actually validate what they type to be the correct amount visually, when it comes to reports and output documents, we would also want amount values to have those commas. And so which means I would need another variable called amount, and I will call it amount requested commas. So amount requested commas is going to be the text box that the user will interact with on the form. And I'm going to, we're going to use a JavaScript library that would allow the system to automatically position the thousand-separator-commas as the user types in his or her amount value. So which means the amount requested commas field that the user will be interacting with on the form, we should have a string data type. However, the amount requested field will still be on the form because we wouldn't, in case there's a need for calculations to be done, I would need that float value on the form. So what we'll have at the end of the day will be to use a hidden variable to hold this on the form. But for now, we will leave it as a text box that we can see so that we can validate that whatever JavaScript logic we add to the form is working efficiently. Now, the same thing will happen to our amount advanced. So I'm going to have amount advanced commas. Okay, so now let's add these two to the form and let's see what happens. So we add another row of equal columns. Now, sorry, let's minimize this. So like I said, this amount requested, we're going to put it down. We're going to be hiding them at the end of the day. So we want to put what we want to put on the form now, what the user will interact with. It's going to be a text box. And its ID is going to be, or variable name going to be amount requested commas. Okay. And we can change its label to in figures. In figures. Okay. And it's going to be required. Now, its counterpart that is without the commas, that is the float variable, we'll just put hide for now, just label hide requested. Now, we move on to this other one, the amount advanced commas. We are going to add a text box to the form. And this is going to be amount advanced commas. As usual, we're going to replace in the label the commas with in figures. And remember, this is going to be a required field. It's supposed to be disabled, but I'll leave it open for now. This one is the amount requested is not going to be disabled. It's going to be an editable field by the user. Then for the actual amount advanced, which is the float data type variable, we'll just for now change the label to hide advanced so that it's not confusing to us. Okay, so that's what we have. That's what we have for now. But looking at this, you realize that because we're now using a string data type variable here for the user to interact with. The user can type in a string now as a name, something that's not even an amount, like James Bond, and there will be no issues, no complaints. So we need to find a way to restrict the user to type in just what we want. And for that to happen, we need to use a regex. For the purpose of this project, we're going to use the third value, and this allows us to validate amount values that may or may not have comma. So for that, I'm going to copy, I have it here already. We're going to copy this and we'll come to the amount requested commas field. Come down to validate, paste this there. And for the validation, so do the same thing for the amount advanced commas. paste. And for the error validation message or validation error message, we'll type in something like amount values only. Amount values only. And we'd also add not more than 2 decimal places. Not more than 2 decimal places. Okay. So copy the same thing here. And we'll come to the amount requested commas and paste it as well. Okay. Now, we'd also be nice to add a hint to help users that may be confused on how they should type in their inputs into that field by adding a hint that says something to the effect of type only the figures of the amounts. Let's make this bigger. Type only the figures of the amounts. The system will add the 1000-separator-commas appropriately. Okay, so we copy and do the same hint here. Okay, so let us check whether what we've done is working. So you can see now that the hint is here. Now the person can no longer type James Bond here. The regex validates it, and immediately you see the message. Okay, now the person cannot type a negative number because our regex will only allow for positive numbers. So even if a person comes here and types -1000, the validation error will still be shown. Now, if the person types in 1000, it's very much okay. But you can see the system is not yet putting in the 1000-separator-commas automatically. So we're going to come to that. But before we do that, it is important for us to check out what other forms or what aspects of this form is still left to be done. And that would be the acknowledgement section, then the comment section, and the approver sign-offs section. Now, remember, like we've already concluded that for our design, we need one parent form or one main form for initiation and one main form for approver at the Cash Advance Requisition leg of our process. So which means I would need a comment section on both forms. I will also need an approver sign-off on both forms. So it doesn't make any sense for me to drag the fields into this initiation form. And when it's time for the approval form, I still do all the dragging again. That would be a multiplication of efforts. The best approach would be to hold these fields in a form by itself and hold these other fields in a form by themselves, and then bring them into the main form using the subform control. As you can also see, even these other ones that we've done here will be needed on both forms. So it doesn't make any sense for me to just create them here and then create them here on the initiation form, and then on the approval form, start dragging them all again. So I also need a form to hold these values I have here. And I would like to call, so there are 3 subforms we want to create now. The first one will be for the comments. And for ease of identification, I prefer to prefix my subforms with the word subform in their title. So we want to create a subform comment log. We also want to create subform approval sign-offs. Then the one that will hold all these common fields, I'll call that the subform common fields. Now, these subforms will only be used at the or during the cash advance requisition leg of the process, right? When for the expense retirement leg, I would need to use a different approval sign-off forms. I also need another set of common fields, but I can reuse the comment log form. Okay, so it means I would add another prefix here for the leg of the process, CAR for cash advance requisition, CAR for cash advance. The comment fields is usable for both legs. That subform can be usable for both legs. Okay, so let's quickly create these ones now. For us to start, we'll start with the common fields, these common fields. And for us to be able to do this, we need these fields we've already created here. We need these fields that we've already created here. Okay, so I'm going to close that and export this. So I export it, and you can see it here already exported. Close this. We are creating, remember, we are creating the common fields copy. So create a new subform. Sorry, we'll paste this. Wow, I thought I copied it. Copy, paste, okay. And a description, subform for the cash advance requisition and expense retirement process to hold the common fields for the cash advance leg. Save and open. Then we import the form we just exported. And now we don't need this title anymore. So this is how the form is going to look like. So let's preview and see. Okay. So we would need this, the amount requested to be disabled. I'll tell you why soon. These two will be disabled. This should be disabled. Everything should be disabled except the even the expense reason should be disabled. We're going to use JavaScript to enable it for the user. So disable this, sorry, disabled. So everything here should be disabled. Everything here should be disabled. Let's see. Okay, because we're going to be using this in the approval form. And on the approval form, none of these fields should be editable by any of the approvers, whether the supervisor or the finance officer. Okay, so that is the reason why we are disabling all the fields. Okay, so we've done that. I think that we should be good to go there. Then we can close this. Then the next one we want to create is the subform comment log. We're going to copy this and then let's create subform for the cash advance requirement and expense retirement process to hold comments related fields. Let me just copy all of this. Just save, create a third one, which will be for, let me paste what I copied there before. Then go back and let's get the name. Yeah, the subform for approval sign off. So paste it there. So subform for the cash advance requisition and expense retirement process to hold approval sign off approval related fields. So we can now save and open this one up. Okay. Now let's see, for this field, we said we are going to be having the following. See? Yes, these 6 fields. So we need a subtitle, and that subtitle is going to have the label approval sign-offs. Section approval sign-offs. And then the first one will be sign-off employee. Sign-off employee. And then next one is sign-off supervisor. So let's get 2 columns here again on this row. Dragging a text box. Sign-off supervisor. Then the third one will be sign-off finance. So get a set of 2 columns again. And dragging a text box. And so we have this. Then for the dates, time, dragging a text box. Save that. Do the second one. Save that. And then the last one. Save that. Okay. Now, if we preview, what will you see? Something like this, which is not what we want. So change the labels here. It's always good because these signature fields are basically date and time fields. So we're going to be changing the labels here to date and time, something like this. Yeah. So copy that and make it reflect here. Paste and make it reflect here. Paste. Now all these fields should be disabled. We could do them one by one, or we could just go to the form itself and take disabled, and all of them are disabled. Okay, now the labels for the sign-off names, we need to modify them so that they a bit look like what we have on the manual form. Okay, so let's get down to do that. For the sign-off employee, we would prefer to have it depicted as cash advance request by. So cash advance request by. And for the supervisor, we should be supervisor approver by. So let's copy that bit because we'll need it here for the finance. Oh, sorry, that will be finance disbursement, not approval. Finance disbursement by. So let's preview. So that's what we want to see. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to do is complete the comments, the comment log. No, we've not done that. Now, for comments, we need a subtitle. Its label will be comments, just section ID, section comments log. And then we add 2 columns on that row. No, sorry, we don't need 2 columns. Be beautiful if it's just 1 column. So we need comments and then comments. Okay. So we need a text area for that. Add the first one, comments, save, and then add another text area. Make these comments and save. Now, for the comments, we'll make the label to be add comments, and we leave this as comments. Now, for the add comment text field, we'll make it to have 2 rows, and the comments log, this other one that will hold everything, to be 3 rows and disabled. So 2 rows, and then this will be 3 rows, and it should be disabled. Okay, now let's preview and see. So these are it's going to look like. Remember, for a text area control, users can always expand or modify the height to see all the text that it contains. Okay, so I think we can save and exit here, and then go back to our initiation form. So now on our initiation form, we don't need all these fields anymore. So we're going to delete all these rows one by one. Then preview it to see that it's empty. And so what we need now is to use a subform control and bring in the common fields. So if you preview, we now have this. Then the next thing we want to do is add the comments. So bring in another subform and take comments. You preview, this is what you see, right? Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is to add the let's check our form. Oh, there is an acknowledgement section. Okay, so let's add an acknowledgement section for that by just using a label. So where's our label? Yeah, this label. So add a label, and like I've always said, we prefix the ID with label underscore acknowledge. Acknowledgement. Okay. So let me see, it's looking tiny. Let's see that I have the correct thing down. Oh, sorry. I missed this. So I can copy this again and then replace what is here so that it is correct. Okay. Now, what the text will be, we're going to come to that later. But after the acknowledgements, we need the approver sign up subform. If you preview, you have something like this. Now, before the acknowledgement, no, after the acknowledgement, rather, we should have, let's see. So I agree to, let's copy all of this. So that's what the acknowledgement should be. View wrap. It appears the text is okay and is not broken in any way. Okay. So that's great. So all we now need to do is copy this. So for the label, let's assume we want to put it in a P tag. So that's a P tag. And inside this P tag, we need to put in a title and then close the strong tag and then do a break. Then before we paste what we just copied. Okay, we're going to see it now. So we need acknowledgement. Or do we need a break? Oh yeah, let's have a break there. So let's preview and see what we have. So acknowledgement. So maybe we remove the break so that it just flows from the very first line. Okay, so to remove the break, okay, we'll put a non-breaking space there. And when we preview, we have this. Now, after the acknowledgement, we expect to have a submit button so that the user can submit the form. So we'll drag that there and we'll call its ID submit underscore btn, copy what is there and also use it as the name of the button. And then for the label, we put submit request. Okay, so let's preview. So our form looked done at this point. Now, you'll notice something, which is that imagine that you have a process where there are 15 approvers or 15 users, 15 tasks, 15 users. It means that these are approval sign-off section is going to be very long. I would prefer that the fields in this section are only shown, mark you, only shown when there is a value. So if there's no value in the text box on the left, for instance, this cash advance request by, the supervisor approval by, if this text field is empty, then it should not display this entire row. I would prefer something like that so that the fields on the form that are displayed are based on the on what roles have values. So to do that, we need some JavaScript. So this is bringing you now to adding JavaScript to a form. So we want to add some JavaScript logic to the approval forms. And we said to do that in one of our previous videos or lessons. You select the Dynaform container, clicking on it, and the form properties, what would you see? JavaScript. So we can click on this to edit. Now we can add okay, and I want to add a little comment here that says event handler form defaults on ready. Okay. So using jQuery now, $document. So what I want to happen when the form is ready on load. So $document.ready and we use an anonymous function here. Function okay. So for the supervisor fields, I would have if the sign-off supervisor, if the sign-off supervisor, this variable, that field does not have a value, it should hide. So now how do I get the value of a text box? This is where using wiki.processmaker.com, the ProcessMaker 3 documentation is very helpful. Remember that on the form, let me save this first, and let's preview and see. So I want to be able to get the value from this text box. So how do I do that using JavaScript? Very easy. So let's come here and search for text box. So we want to see what are the JavaScript methods for a text box. So these text boxes and text areas, let's select that. And if you check the content here, see JavaScript methods, okay? So we have a get value, this is it, returns the value of the field, which is what is stored by the field, okay? So we can use a get value to get the value in the supervisor approval or the sign-off supervisor text box. Okay. So how is it used? If you go down back, let's see, how is it used? You see jQuery, the field ID, and get value. Okay, we'll call the get value method. Okay, so let's go back to our JavaScript. So we want to say if, and what are we typing there? $, which is the jQuery, and then we access the ID, which is hash or pound sign-off supervisor, and then dot get value if it is empty. Something like this. So what should happen? We want to hide the sign-off supervisor field and the datetime supervisor field. So let's see, is there a JavaScript method for that? Let's see. There's no direct hide here, but let's see other JavaScript functions and methods. So there is standard, the hide. Okay. And it says to hide, you just call the hide method on the. So let's quickly do that. So in that case, I'm going to select this, copy. So dot hide. See that? Dot hide. And repeat it for the date time field. And what we just need here is the date time supervisor. Come here and put it. So let's even see if this works. So save and we'll preview. You see that the supervisor field is no longer there. Okay. So just to check whether our code works appropriately, let's set this field to be editable. No, just can leave it back. You can disable it back. So we use JavaScript to test it. So remember to set the value, go back to this where we were before. So we can also set the value, and in parentheses, in quotes, we put in the new value. Okay. So let's assume I want to set the value. Let's set a default value. To see whether it works. So sign-off supervisor, set value, and let's put the value there to be James Bond. James Bond. Save the preview. You see, because there's a value here, this role showed, so which means our code is working perfectly. So we can remove that and just replicate this now. So copy it, replicate it for the finance officer fields as well. So finance officer, and then we're going to take sign off finance officer and replace what we have here. Replace this, and then get the daytime finance and put it here as well. Okay, let's save and preview the form. You see that only the first shows now. Okay. Okay, so let's see how this impacts the main form. Sorry. Dynaforms, and let's go to this and let's preview. And you see that only the first row shows there. Okay. Now, what about we talked about allowing the user to be able to access some fields here on the initiation form. So we need to write some JavaScript to open this field up for editing, this field and this one too. So how do we do that? That should be very easy for us to do. So let's access the JavaScript property of this main form. Okay. So these two should have the document ready when it loads, just like we did on the other form. So let's add a comment. I find it very useful to add comments to my JavaScript. Makes it to my JavaScript logic, rather. It makes it pretty understandable, or let's say legible, because it shows that all the code lines are not just bundled up together. One can actually go through the code lines one by one, and you can make sense of what is there from looking at the comments. So I would advise that, as much as this JavaScript dialog is not like your regular code editor, it's important that you use comments in your JavaScript logic so that it's readable to people who come across it. So for this, again, I'll say event handler form defaults on ready. So what do I want here? Again, I'll use jQuery to access the document. So document, okay. Then call the ready method. And within the ready method, we use an anonymous function. Okay. So first thing we want to do is to allow the user to use both the expense reason to input data into the expense reason field, as well as the amount requested commas field. Okay. So say what's wrong? Enable editing of these fields. So what fields? So we're using jQuery again. The how do you access the attribute of a text field to enable it for editing? Let's go back to our wiki. So remember, we are still looking at the text JavaScript methods for text and text area. There's nothing here but except for this get control that says we can use this function to obtain the controls input field. Okay. So let's click on get control and see what happens. Okay. So when we get a control, okay. Okay. Let's go to the top of this JavaScript methods and functions. And let's see, is there anything here that can help us? Okay, so there's the attribute. So let's see how it works. Okay. So they're using this now to get the value attribute. Okay. Now it says disable a drop-down box with the ID. Okay, so you see, this is a line of code they use. They use two methods, get control, and then the attribute method. Okay, so let's go back. So we want to do, let's just copy this. Sorry, let's just copy this. Get control and then disabled true. Copy that so that we don't have to type it. And then we paste. Okay. So all I now need to do is to come here and add for amount requested commas. That's the first field. The second one is going to be expense reason. So we add that. Expense reason. Wow, we don't have an expense reason here. Let's add it. I hope the ID is correct. Expense reason. So expense reason are this. So let's see if what we've done works. So expense, let me check that so expense reason. So the ID is correct. Let's check here. Oh, sorry, we forgot to put, okay, it is there, hash is there. Expense reason dot get control dot this, so it should be false. We want them enabled for editing, so it should be false. So it's now open for editing. So you see that the user can do this. Okay. Now, apart from this being open for editing, at the initiation task, the employee has nothing to do with the amount advanced commas field and the date advanced field. So it should not be required. If we do not disable validation here, then it's going to be a problem because the user will not be able to submit the form. So how do we use JavaScript to make these two fields not required? So that's what we want to do next. We come down to our JavaScript on wiki, and you see disable validation. It says you just call the method on the ID on the jQuery object of the control. So let's come back here. After we enable editing of these fields, we want to disable validation for these fields as well. So let's make use of this, copy, paste, and modify it a bit. Remove all of this and turn this to disable validation. Copy that method and paste it here, disable validation. And the control we want to target is the amount advanced commas. Okay, and then we want to also target date advanced. So we copy this and we paste, and we take this and put it here, date advanced, disable validation, correct. Okay, so we have that now. Then something else we'd like to do, let's save and preview the form and see. So these are open for editing. These are no longer required. These two are no longer required. But coming down, if you look at this acknowledgement area, we want it to be in a gray rectangle. So we need to access this control using JavaScript. Let's copy the ID. and then access it a bit. So we'll come down here and say apply CSS to the acknowledgement label. So for us to do that, let's use jQuery to access it on the DOM. We'll call the .css method. There should be a .css method. So a .css method, the standard jQuery method that can be used to either read or write, or either read or change one of the style properties of a control. So once you call the method, all you need to do is put in the property name and then pair it with a value, and you are able to change. Okay, let's go and see if we can use that. So let's call the CSS method here. And we want to change the margin and the background color. So we're going to put in an array. The first one will be margin. For margin, let's use 12 pixels and put auto there. 12 pixels auto, then a comma. Then for the background hyphen color, what value should we give this? Let's give it a DDD. Okay. Our margin is wrong, please typed. So we have label acknowledgement.css, then margin 12 pixels auto and background color DDD. Okay, that's the first one. I think we should add something else around the padding. Let's see. Let's duplicate this. Well, this time around, we'll use padding top and put 5 pixels. And then padding left. Let's use 10 pixels and see. And then padding right. Let's use another 10 pixels there. Okay, let's see whether what we've done works. Preview. So you can see now that it's beginning to look okay. And then what else do we do? To preview, let's assume that okay, so it's fine at this point, but we've still not addressed the Thousand-Separator-Comma issue. So this is where we're going to import in a library called Cleave. We're going to import a library called Cleave. Let's see if we can get the Cleave JavaScript library. Okay, let's Cleave.js. Let's see if we can get it on GitHub. So this should be it. Okay. So this is how we'll be using it. This is for credit card number. Let's see. Yeah, so this is the one we'll be using. This is the one we'll be using. If you are imputing, you see automatically the commas are put there. Okay, so this is what we'll be using. But how do we get the library? Let's see. If you click on Get on GitHub, okay, yeah, clicking on this, can I disable my okay. So for you to get the library, let's see how you can get the library now. So let's go down and look for, okay, so that's the installation. So old school, grab the file from the dist directory. If you click on that, so just download this file, the cleave.min.js. So that is what I have here. That is what I have here. So I'm going to copy this now and place it into our public underscore HTML folder within our ProcessMaker installation directory. So how do we do that? So we need to access the workflow file. Now, if you are using ProcessMaker on a Linux installation, you go to your opt folder, ProcessMaker, then you see workflow. Same thing if you are on a Windows installation. But since for this test environment that we're using, we're using a Bitnami installation, we are going to go access our workflow folder by going through these other parent folders. So let's see how we can quickly go there. So I go to this PC, this is Bitnami, then open ProcessMaker folder, go to apps, go to ProcessMaker, go to htdocs, and this is workflow. Now within workflow, you see public underscore HTML. When you open public underscore HTML, create a folder and name it JS, short for JavaScript. Okay. Now, once you've done that, copy the library that you downloaded. So for now, we're going to add we'll add these two libraries, or all the three of them, Cleave, NumbersUtil, and SweetAlert. We're going to copy all of them, paste them here. Now let's go up. Now for our CSS, we are going to copy these two style sheets. And there's already a CSS folder existing in the ProcessMaker installation. We'll just paste these two. Now, the SweetAlert CSS is to mirror or to be used in conjunction with the SweetAlert.js library. But there's also the NumbersUtil. The NumbersUtil library, we'll be using this for converting an amount to words. Then the Cleave.min library, or the Cleave library, we'll be using this for Thousand-Separator. Okay. So what I have left to explain is the msb.css file. We'll come back to this. Let's just continue for now. Okay, now once you are in the public once you're able to drop files into your public_html folder, it's quite easy for you to access them from within your process. So how are we going to do that? Let me close this too, so that we are back here to our process. Now, I would not want to add the external libraries here for this main process. And when I create the approval process and the approval form, I will then need to add them again. To avoid the repetition of adding external libraries to my main forms, it's best I add it to a subform that will be invoked or used in my main forms. And one of the subforms that will be used in both this initiation form and the approval form is this approval sign-off subform. So if I go down to my approval sign-off forms, access the form properties, go to external library, I would access the JavaScript libraries I just added by, let's check the names again. So for the names, we have Cleave.min, NumbersUtil. So let's start. So it's in JS. Remember that. There's a JS folder in, there's a JS folder directly inside our public_HTML. So it's just type JS. And what are we looking for inside JS? NumbersUtil.js. That is the first library we want to access. Then the second one will be the Cleave.min.js. So separate the first library file from the second with the comma, and we'll type JS again, /Cleave.min.js. So in other words, what have we typed? Let's cut what is there and come here so that you can see. Numbers JS/NumbersUtil.js. This is the first file. This one, NumbersUtil.js. Then JS/Cleave.min.js, right? We're not adding suite alert yet. So these two we can put here. So because they have been added or included as, these libraries have been included as part of this form, let us save. When you open your initiation form, they will also be included because the subform having them is included on this parent form. So we have it here. So the main form, this main initiation form can be able to access those libraries, or we can be able to access these libraries from this main form. Okay, I hope that makes a bit of sense to us. Okay, so now that we have included those libraries, it's time for us to use the Cleave the Cleave library to do what we need to do. Remember, I showed us something a bit back. Let's see. Let's go to our history. Let's open the Cleave. And let's look for the Thousand-Separator. Yeah, this is it, style 1000. And we are to use this. We are to use this. Now remember that, let's access the JavaScript again of our form. Remember that the Cleave needs to work. Cleave needs to work on both the amount requested commas and the amount advanced commas. It needs to work there. So we'll need to create a function that allows us to use it on both fields. Coming back to the documentation for Cleave.js library, you see what we have here. We copy this and we can come here. We want to create a function, and that function, we'll call it Cleave Thousand-Separator. Cleave Thousand-Separator. Let's see how the function takes shape. Then the code snippet we copied from here, we're going to paste it here. But you can see, I'll just call a new Cleave object. I don't need the variable part. Okay, so we have a new Cleave object there, and there is this input element that we have here. We want to actually, we replace this by the field ID. So a variable field ID. And we want to be able to pass this field ID as a parameter. So the function. Okay. So this should be it. We should solve our problem. Okay. This should be it. But let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. So for us to be able to know if it works, when the form loads, we want to be able to apply this function. Copy. Then come down here. So apply Cleave to the amounts requested field. So put that there. What field are we passing in? Going to comment this out first so that we can go to get the field ID that we need. Now, if I right click and take inspect and check here, you can see the ID. Can we see the ID here? This is the ID. Copy it. And come back here. This is what we want. But again, in JavaScript, we need to escape these square brackets. So let's quickly do that. So this should work. This should work, but let's see if it works. Okay, so this brings us to debugging. Now remember, so let's quickly talk about this aspect of our debugging before we continue. So we want to see how do we troubleshoot errors that might occur from adding JavaScript to our Dynaforms. Now, if there is no error when the JavaScript code or logic is being executed as the form loads, our form will show up. And we will be able to preview the form. But we are now not able to preview this form because the preview form or screen is stuck in the loading state, as you can see. And this is because there's a line of code that the system needs to pass when the form loads. And that's why we're having this issue. So for us to be able to attend to this and resolve it, it's quite easy. But before we go there, remember that the common causes of errors in JavaScript code includes things like syntax error, incorrect variable names, or typographical errors. Maybe you've missed a semicolon somewhere. Now, for us to be able to do this, we'll need to go to our developer tools and go to the console. To go to the console, clear the console, and let's right-click and refresh this frame. Okay, so you can see error, Cleave JS. Check the elements, and we're doing that. So there's an issue with the elements we have typed. So I think the issue is with the ID from what we can see. So let's go back and see that. So we forgot to put in a pound or hash here. That's why. So let's save and preview. So it opens now. Now let's see whether the library works. As we type 10,000, can you see the commas now? Can you see the commas appearing? So that is it. That is it. Okay. So that's just one part because again, this is a string. This is a string. That is a string. And we would prefer that there is a float value as well as the amount in words. So let's quickly handle that part. Go back to the JavaScript on the form. Let's quickly copy this. Like putting my comments well. So here I call this function. And thousand separator for amounts. That's what I'll call this. Thousand separator for amounts. Okay. Now I need a function that I can use as a set on change whenever the user types in an amount. So I call this set on change. Say amount requested. Amount requested. Now remember now I have amount requested commas. I just get the ID, the jQuery object. We'll come back here. Now, how do we handle set on change? Let's see, there must be a something here for JavaScript methods that set on change. Okay, this is it. For set on change, we either we can use an anonymous function inside the set on change, or define the function and put the name of the function as its parameter for the set on change method. Okay, so let's do this one. We're going to use an anonymous function without these parameters and see if it will work. So let's type set on change. It's not typing it correctly. Let's just copy what we have here. Copy the method. I'll close Cleave now. I don't need Cleave anymore. Paste. And then I have this. That's the first part. Now I want to create an anonymous function in here. Okay. So let's set default values. Set default values or default output values first. Say let amount words equal nothing, and let amount commas equal nothing. Okay. Now let's get the actual value. Get the actual amount value. So let amount figures be equal to, let's target the jQuery object. Oh, sorry. Okay, jQuery object dot, we get the value. Okay, now if we get, it might have one thing you should know. Give me a moment, let me adjust. If you get the value, it's going to have commas with it. It might have commas, or it might have commas. So we'll need to do a replace. And we'll be replacing commas with nothing. Okay. Now it's good to put in an extra layer of validation. Check that if that value is numeric, sorry, type it wrongly. If it is numeric, okay, then what should happen? So what are we checking if it is numeric is amount figures. So it's only when it is numeric that we should get stuff done. So amount words now is amount words that we had here. Amount words will be, we need to check what this library can do for us, the utils library. So we're going to open it with Visual Studio Code. Okay, so there's a function to words, and we'll put in the number to, as you can see, we put in the number to convert. Okay, so we type in to words, and inside there, we are putting amount figures. And then once we get the amount to words, then we can set the value. We can set these other values. So we set value. We set the value to amount words. And for which variable, we're doing this for the amount requested words. So that's what we have here, amount requested words. Then so for amount commas, will pass floats. We pass floats amount figures. So that string value, we'll pass it, and then we'll set it back on the form. So this goes straight down to the float variable, amount requested, and we set its value as amount commas. Now, the reason why we had to set these output values, so that in case whatever is imputed by the user is not numeric, even though that we've done regex validation on that field. What we would have at the end of the day, we want those fields to be emptied. So if they are to be emptied, we may need to do this setting outside the condition. So let's see how that works. So send outputs to the phone. Then this one too. Okay, so we have that now. So that's basically what we've just done. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it works. Preview to open, so that means there's no error in our code, but let's now see if there's an error in our function. So if I type 12,450 here, you can see that the comma shows here, but there's no comma for the float value, and this is here. Okay? Or if I say 178,443 and 75. See that? So that's working for us now. That's working for us. Okay. So, but again, this form looks very bland. So we need a style sheet to help us improve the user interface of the form. And for that, we shall be using this MSB. MSB is the name of our fictional organization, MSB Corporation. And if we are to open this with Visual Studio Code, you see that this, looking back again to the logo of the company, there is a primary color. The primary color is teal or deep sea blue, and the secondary color is copper red. So you can always modify this style sheet to with the color, primary and secondary color of your company's brand. Okay. And we have all of these here targeting various aspects of the form. So how do we add this to our project? Remember that in our public.html, we created CSS. There was an existing CSS folder. We already copied this msb.css file there, correct? So what we will do now is to go back to our approval sign-offs where we are attaching or adding the external libraries. And let's see, what do we have in here? We just add another comma, and this time around css/msb.css. That is the style sheet. We copy this and replace what we have here with that, and then we save. Let's check. So you see already that bland stuff has changed now. And so, which means if we go to our main form and preview again, so it's changed now to something much more appealing to the eyes. Okay, see this? But our button is taking the color of the secondary color of the brand. So let's use JavaScript to change that. And why do we want to change that? Because there are classes for the buttons within this style sheet. So you can see, let's see. So there is button approve and there's button reject. So there's a green for approve and there's red for reject. So we would like to use that. So let's target. How do we target this button? We need to get its ID. So if I inspect and take this, you see that this is the ID of the button. So let's copy this. And you see that the current class is btn-default. btn-default. So let's go to our JavaScript again. And let's add the line of code here. Apply CSS to form buttons. So jQuery objects and add the ID. We just copied. And of course, remember, we'll need to escape these square brackets. Okay. And we need to remove class, remove class, then before we add a new class. Now, what is the class we want to remove? Remember, we said that was btn hyphen default, but on our style sheets, external style sheet or custom style sheets, there's a btn approve. Okay, let's preview. See that the color has changed now. Okay, one more thing. In our style sheets, there is in our style sheets, there is space for a logo. So it's in images, MSB logo. Okay. Now, if we click on this, let's see, can we see if we can? So control click to follow, control click, it does not exist. So it means we need to add the logo here in images. So let's go. We have our images. This is the logo, the PNG logo. We want to copy this. And then we'll go to our public.html. Don't forget that. Inside, you see images, and then we can paste this. So it's pasted now. Okay. Now, let's see if we control click. So an error loading the image, still not opened. Let's close, refresh this, and then open again. Okay, let's don't do control click. Still not showing. Let's see what could be the matter. MSB hyphen logo. And what do we have here? MSB hyphen logo in images. Let's take the paths first and take properties. I hope it's the PNG file. Copy the PNG file, so there should be no issues. Let's see the path, the happy path. So images, MSB hyphen logo.png. Okay. So let's images, MSB logo.png. So this should work. This should work. Let's see. Function. Open file using standard. Okay. Okay, let's open that folder. Open folder. To this PC. Bitnami, ProcessMaker apps, ProcessMaker htdocs, workflow, HTML, and then let me open this. Okay, so we'll go to CSS, msb.css. Okay, control click. Yeah, it opens now. So you can see it. So if we were to preview this, we have to clear cache so that it appears on the form here. Okay. So let's close this. Let's close all of this. Let's see. Let's log out. Let's try and log in again. Let's see whether that makes. Oh, okay. We handle the logo later, but it's already there. But just need to clear the cache. Fresh frame. Let's clear cache and see. Okay, so we put that there. And what else do we need on this form? We've been able to handle the comma separator. Okay, and we've been able to handle amount of words. This that we hide later shows that whatever script you wrote there is working correctly. What else do we need to add? Doesn't seem like there's anything else to add for now. We'll just come back to it later. So one more thing before I talk about a logo for the instance. The logo for this form, what is expected to happen is that this logo that we have here, is going to show up on every form. So like we have the form title on the left, we're going to be seeing that logo on the right here, but it's not showing now because it's cached first. So one way we can quickly resolve that is to, let's see, let's go back to, sorry, let's come up here to a CSS file and just rename it, add an X to it, and we'll go to where we are referencing the library, add an X here too. So you can see it's coming up now. So it was cached before. So let's go back now and check our form. So this is how it's supposed to look like. So the logo will be on this side. So that's what we need to do. Okay. Lastly, you can see that the ProcessMaker logo on our instance is still showing there. For us to add a logo to the instance, we click on admin, we go to the settings tab, then click on logo, we upload and select a file from our desktop, go to images, select the PNG logo, and we upload it. Now, after it's uploaded, you see this successfully uploaded message. Then we can select it and apply. You get this, the logo was replaced, and you can see that our company logo is now what is there. So with that, we have come to the end of this lesson. And so far, so good. You see that we've been able to add a accompanying logo to our ProcessMaker instance. We've been able to complete the creation of our initiation form. We've been able to add custom CSS to make our form more appealing. And we've been able to add JavaScript libraries. We use NumbersUtil as well as Cleave.js, the Cleave library, to add separator commas for us, and the utils, allows us to convert the amount string to words. We've been able to also consider how to handle debugging errors in JavaScript. And when our form is stuck in the loading state, we can go to our console in developer tools of our browser and see what the message is. And just to recap that, we'll quickly go over that again. Let's assume here we forgot this semicolon on line 57. Let's save and try to view. Sorry, we need something that 57. We need something that would, let's see, let me look for, okay, let me omit this opening brace here, save, and preview. So it will be stuck in this loading state. And we said if we go to our developer tools and go to console, we'll see, can clear and refresh to get a new report. We see right here, let me increase it. We see right here, unexpected token new. And where is it targeting? Line 8. You click on that, you see something is the issue here. And if you look carefully, it is because we have omitted. So between these lines is where we have the issue, between these lines. So if we go back and add our opening brace again and save, preview, sorry, we're not exporting, preview, everything opens. So see you in the next lesson, and I hope you learned a lot from our lesson 6. In lesson 7, we'll be talking about user management on ProcessMaker. So see you in the next lesson.